Say something?
Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo.
Cool. All right, let's begin. What are you doing with your hair there, Seamilk?
Got a bit of a headache.
Oh, really?
No, I just freaking lost my hat. Look at this crap. It's gonna puff up like a freaking afro.
Hey, at least you've got hair. Everyone's like, look at this balding, middle-aged, whatever.
That's true.
You know?
I didn't think about it like that. But
Yeah.
It does kind of suck. Anyway, what are we
Flock
talking
of
about today?
seagulls. What we're talking about is the way that China bullies, international companies and associations and stuff to not refer to Taiwan as anything other than part of China.
Right. Or even some more details here to include that famous 9-dash line.
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah.
On all of its maps, and it's very, very important for China to assert itself with all these companies abroad to make sure that we are acknowledging the sovereign territory of the nation.
Well, basically, it's about bullying their take on the world into, the common zeitgeist.
Right.
Yeah, and the first time I came across this, I was studying Chinese at the Chinese university. And I still have my textbook somewhere. I'll try and dig it up. But in the textbook, it's got a list of all the countries. It's got
Right.
England. It's gonna rain again.
We can't escape. Let's go the other way. Maybe
Yeah.
we can escape it.
Maybe we can. Sorry. Anyway, it's got England. It's got America. And then it had Taiwan, and in brackets, a province of China. Exclamation
I
mark.
love that they put the exclamation mark.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it's fine if that's the way you want to see it. We can't really take sides. It's not our politics. We are going to talk about whether we think Taiwan is a country or not. That's coming up in an upcoming
Right.
episode, just from our own personal observations. But, it's not really our thing.
No.
But to forcefully, you must,
Right.
say it's this.
Right.
What the hell? We're just learning how to say Taiwan in Chinese, right?
Right. But they have to make sure. Right?
Yeah.
Now, this has been a recent phenomenon. It's been a thing for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets worse and worse and more serious the more China claims, right? So with this whole
Yeah.
South China Sea thing, we had the Diaoyu Islands, Senkaku Island thing.
Mm-hmm.
That died down a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you had the islands off the coast of Vietnam. Then you had
Sure.
the Parcel Islands, all these islands around Philippines and stuff. And then China was like, you know what, enough.
Yeah.
So they drew this 9-dash line.
Sure.
Put it on T-shirts. They were like, I think
This is ours.
in Chinese it was
Yeah.
like 一点都不少. Like you're not allowed to say there's a little bit less. This
Yeah.
is China, right? So,
Didn't they say they found some old map that said that ancient
Yeah,
times
yes.
this was Chinese territory?
there was actually a fairly recent thing where some Chinese women
Yeah.
specifically went to go travel to Vietnam wearing those 9-dash line T-shirts.
Yeah.
And then the border guard in Vietnam and their passport wrote "F you."
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite hilarious.
I thought it
That's
was kind of funny.
hilarious.
But they specifically wore those shirts just to piss off Vietnamese people in their own country, right?
Yeah.
And that's the arrogance of this whole situation, right? That's this ridiculous assertion.
Yeah. Unfortunately, of course, China has complete control over what people think and say within the borders of China.
Right.
And they get very frustrated that they don't have that same control over what people think and say outside of the borders of China.
Right.
That's why they do things like use money, penalties, and things like that, punitive measures. So, for instance, they will go to a company like the Marriott or something and say, we're going to make sure that all Chinese people boycott staying in the Marriott.
Right.
Unless you take off your list of countries, Taiwan, and you just
Right.
put China instead.
Right. So yeah, you've seen remember the Gap, that clothing company?
Yep.
They put out that it was just kind of an artsy T-shirt or an artsy shirt and had a map of China that didn't have Taiwan or the Spratlys or anything on there. And then they're like, boycott the Gap, screw this company, and Chinese people are all up in arms and they're riling up the locals.
That's the thing, is that it's actually quite easy for them to bring this nationalist fervor to their favor. Like when America sailed through the South China Seas on
Right.
that exercise of peace or whatever it is.
Right.
Then everybody was boycotting iPhones and smashing their
Right.
iPads and stuff. And people do it because they have this massive nationalist pride.
Right.
And it does hurt companies, big
Right.
time,
Right. For
at
sure.
least in the short run.
For sure. Now, bullying these companies into this is something I actually didn't think was going to happen. I thought that they would use their rhetoric, their kind of soft power stuff to whine.
Yeah.
But you actually had these companies tweeting out, like the Marriott and stuff, saying, I'm so sorry, this will never happen again. We recognize the sovereignty of the PRC in in lieu of morals and politics, they just say that because they don't want to lose their customer base or piss off. I mean, in this day and age with like a big left-wing push in the media, right?
Yeah. Let's take a look. They've got the sea over here.
Impressive. Look at those waves, dude.
Yeah. Cross over.
John Edwards.
Yeah, let's John Edwards. Watch out for the scooters.
You have a massive left-wing bias in a lot of media sources. I think it's scared a lot of these companies.
Sure.
And it's scared a lot of them to where they're like, we can't be racist because they're not white, right? It's China, so we have to be nice, right?
Yeah. Let's turn around so people can see this awesome sea behind us.
I'll just show the sea first.
Yeah, show the sea.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. Also, if we stand this way, the wind won't get on the mic as much.
Right.
Just keep that behind us. Yeah, the next thing though is that they're going after airlines, right? Right. And it's kind of annoying because they're basically forcing airlines to, take out of their list of countries Taiwan.
Right. Even though they're flying there.
Sure, of course.
And there's a border. And there's national security, and you have to go get a visa. Anyway, that's another episode.
So don't be surprised if you work for a big company and you click like on a tweet from, I don't know, the Taiwanese tourism board.
Right.
And you might get into trouble, you might get fired. That actually happened to a guy.
Right. It did, didn't it?
Yeah. So what's that place we're not allowed to talk about?
I forgot.
Oh yeah, that place with monks and stuff that Brad Pitt's not ever allowed to visit again.
Right. Oh, and Xinjiang.
Yeah.
Not allowed to talk about that either.
Anyway, no, some guy, and it was very innocent because he works for the Marriott, and I think some or other organization like to do with Tibet.
Right.
Said left a nice review about the Marriott, and he clicked like on that tweet.
Right.
And he actually got fired because of international pressure from China.
Right.
Saying, how dare you recognize, Tibet as whatever, or, that kind of stuff. So it is a little bit worrying, this trend that's going on at the moment.
Right.
But basically, China's trying to force its worldview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
one thing I was going to say as well is that if you, I like your example about Twitter, but what about a real life example, right?
Yeah.
You, on your helmet, have not been able to use your helmet in shots when you're filming with public state media in China.
Yeah.
Simply because you've listed Taiwan as existing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not a political statement. It's the first sticker I put on my helmet.
Right.
Because I rode through Taiwan all those years ago, and I decided from that day that I would start this trend of every single province or country that I go through.
Right.
That I put that down on my helmet. So I put Taiwan.
Right.
Big red stickers, and it's actually been censored out. For instance, I have mentioned this before, but I was interviewed for a newspaper article, and they wanted a screenshot of my YouTube channel.
Right.
Sent it to them. In my YouTube banner, it's got that side of the helmet which says Taiwan in characters.
Right.
They had to crop it out.
Right.
And then also recently for CCTV, they wanted me to send footage.
Right.
And they said, yeah, we want to see a helmet, but not the side that says Taiwan on it, the other side.
Right. Obviously, you have countries that don't acknowledge the ownership of certain islands or whatever in politics, right? But it's interesting to see how these companies really have to fight tooth and nail to keep China happy.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. It's like you've hurt the feelings of the Chinese people, right?
Yeah.
And I've been seeing a resurgence in those type of comments. Stop hurting the feelings of the Chinese people popping up. And I think this is now another new rhetoric that China's trying to push for the soft power thing. Is you can't do that. That's not your place to say. You have to bow down to this, right?
Yeah. The thing is, this kind of stuff's been going on for a very long time. In South Africa, I grew up with a lot of Taiwanese people. Mm-hmm. And the reason being that during the 70s and the 80s, there was a lot of Taiwanese influence.
Right.
Huge Taiwanese community. They had their own printing press. They had their own, locally distributed newspaper, their communities. And of course, Taiwan built this huge empire when it came to things like cell phones, HTC, things like TV, computer monitors, ViewSonic, and I remember when I was young, all the toys I used to get used to say, made in Taiwan, ROC.
I remember that when I was a kid, all my Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. So, there was this big thing, and it was a big part of the country and the politics and everything. But then when China started to grow and started to want to make deals with African countries, they went to South Africa and they basically said, if you want to deal with us, you got to cut all ties with Taiwan. And they did. And a lot of my Taiwanese friends were left high and dry. They'd been there for like 2 generations or whatever. Now, suddenly they had to leave. All the printing presses were shut down. All the government support was taken away.
Right. So Winston, I want to kind of finish this off with the irony of this whole thing.
Sure.
Is that how has China been able to go out of their way to push and bully these companies into doing this? And that is through social media that is 100% blocked in their own nation.
Yes. I know. Isn't that just ridiculous? So they put pressure against somebody who liked a tweet, but you
Right.
can't access Twitter from China.
No.
You know?
Yeah, Twitter has a PRC account,
Yeah.
right? I don't understand
The
this.
Communist Youth League has their own Facebook page and stuff. you
Right,
know?
and YouTube page and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen the state media accounts on YouTube commenting on some of our videos before.
Sure.
And they always get massive downvotes on their videos because they're always really, really heavy propaganda
Sure.
bullshit, like why we own the Spratly Islands or why this and this.
Yeah.
But anyway, YouTube actually had a little bit of a pushback against that, and I thought this was really cool on Google's part,
Okay.
was because of biased state media.
Yep.
They have to put on YouTube, this video was paid for or sponsored by a state government.
Oh, good.
And that's on all their stuff now. So it kind of, when you see that, all credibility is gone, right?
Sure,
It's
sure,
not
sure.
first-hand experience at that point. That's
I mean,
what we're here for.
This has always been my biggest gripe about all this stuff is the double standards.
Right, right.
You know, they bitch and moan when like American Airlines, or just for
Right.
example, on their Facebook page says, you know, reduced costs to Taiwan or something. They'll be like, no.
No.
Should say reduced cost to China.
Right.
Taiwan, a Chinese province, something
Right.
like that.
With an exclamation point.
Yeah. It's just silly. I mean,
Right.
at the end of the day, we understand you butthurt, like it's a shitty history. Both sides have their point of view.
Right.
You know, we don't have to take sides, but at the same time, we're still going to call Taiwan Taiwan
Right.
because it's Taiwan.
Right.
If it's I still call Fujian Fujian
Right.
or Guangdong Guangdong.
Until either China takes it over and then
Yeah.
renames it something else, then
Yeah.
we're going to call it Taiwan because that's actually what it's called, no matter what perspective you have.
Yeah, we're
you can
here-
be pro PRC Taiwan, you can be pro ROC Taiwan, but it's still called Taiwan.
It's still called Taiwan. So I don't see why we can't just call it Taiwan.
Anyway, we wanted to give you a little update on what's been going on in the media with China. Always a rough ride with China. Always a rip rolling time.
Absolutely.
Having a great time with China and the media. Anyway, I want to say this is really getting scary. These waves are massive.
Yeah.
It looks like a massive, huge storm is behind us.
Yes, we're going to get wet again.
Get out of here.
So tired of being wet. We've been in these torrential downpours for the last 2 days.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so guys, whether you believe Taiwan is its own country or not, we love you all the same. And until next time, you know the drill. Don't bully people, it's not good, but stay awesome. Don't forget, every single Monday, ADV China, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here for another video. And of course, on Wednesdays, we have Lao 86 at the same time. And on Friday, in time for a beer, SerpentZA.